Special meeting of the Annapolis City Council on Monday, March 23rd, 2026 will be called to order at 6:16 p.m. At this time, we will have a moment of silence to prepare ourselves for the business ahead. At this time, would everyone willing and able please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Mayor Littman.
Present.
Alderman Huntley.
Here.
Alderwoman O'Neill.
Present.
Alderman Smith Brown. Alderman Officer Johnson.
Here.
Alderman Shannon Meyer. Alderman Conti. Alderman Savage.
Present.
Alderman Thorpe.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. City Attorney, please call the next item on the agenda.
Next item on the agenda is business miscellaneous, beginning with ID 6226, a proposed closed session pursuant to Maryland Annotated Code, General Provisions, Article Section 3305B8, and the discussion topic is pending or potential litigation regarding the Housing Authority of the City of Annapolis.
At this time, I'd entertain a motion to move pursuant to Annotated Code of Maryland General Provisions Article Sections 3-305B8 to go into closed session.
So, second.
Alderman Schannemeyer, thank you. Second, thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes, sir. Mayor Littman.
Yes.
Alderman Huntley.
Aye.
Alderman O'Neill. Alderwoman Officer Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Shannon Meyer. Alderman Savage.
Aye.
Alderman Thorpe.
Aye.
Thank you.
The motion passes. We are now in closed session. The council is back in open session. We'll take a 5-minute break and resume at 7:10. We are back on the record in the City Council meeting for March 23rd. We are out of closed session. Ms. City Attorney, please call the next item on the agenda.
Next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda.
Thank you. At this time, I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended to remove 0726, eliminating the requirement for outdoor dining patrons to be seated on first reader. So moved.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Alderman Thorpe heard the second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries. Ms. City Attorney, would you please present the next item on the agenda?
Next item on the agenda is ceremonial items, ID 6726, a proclamation for Earth Month.
Thank you very much. And, okay, we don't have anyone in council chambers for this, right? So I'm just going to read it.
Just Alderman Savage.
I'll join you, Alderman.
Okay. City of Annapolis proclamation. Whereas Earth Day was introduced in 1970 by then Senator Gaylord Nelson of Wisconsin and has since grown from a small celebration into a celebrated global event. And whereas municipalities across the nation, including Annapolis, have worked to address the urgent issues of climate change, pollution, protection of our natural resources. And whereas celebrating both Earth Day and the wider Earth Month reaffirms our commitment to the environment, resilience, and sustainability every day in Annapolis. And whereas the community is dedicated to continuing the efforts through events, outreach, education, and policy to foster a cleaner, greener, and more sustainable Annapolis. And whereas municipalities across the nation and the state of Maryland, including Annapolis, are celebrating April as Earth Month as a means to continue mobilization, outreach to residents, and our commitment to the cause. And whereas the City of Annapolis has a number of events for residents during the month of April and a number of city rebates, grants, incentives focused on the environment, resilience, sustainability, and energy efficiency. And whereas anyone can join in our efforts by attending an event, subscribing to the Sustainable Annapolis e-newsletter, supporting the new forthcoming climate action plan, or reaching out to staff to learn more. Now, therefore, I, Jared Lippman, Mayor of the City of Annapolis, Maryland, do hereby proclaim April 2026 as Earth Month in the City of Annapolis. Yay. Jackie, I'm leaving that in your good hands for somewhere. Okay. Ms. City Attorney, please call the next item on the agenda.
Next item on the agenda is petitions, reports, and communications, beginning with update from the mayor.
Thank you. Good evening. I want to start by highlighting some very good news about declining numbers of reported drug overdoses in the City of Annapolis. Over the past year, we've seen a 30% drop overall, with fatal overdoses declining 55%. That makes 2025 the second lowest in 10 years. Substance abuse disorder is a challenging problem for any community. It takes a terrible toll on families, meaning that even one overdose is too many. These numbers represent real progress, and I want to acknowledge and thank the city and nonprofit teams who have made a difference. I especially want to acknowledge the Office of Emergency Management's Overdose Prevention Team, the Naptown Anti-Dope Movement, and the Annapolis Fire Department for their work. Together, we can bring healing and recovery to individuals and families. On March 14th, we held our first ward walks. And while walking Ward 8 with Alderwoman Conti and Police Chief Miguez, we got to speak directly with residents where they live, giving us a chance to see and hear their concerns. And I want to thank Alderwoman Conti for introducing us to so many constituents, young and old. These walks are about the customer service piece I keep talking about. Can we fix a pothole, improve a bus shelter, contact BG&E to get a streetlight repaired? There are so many ways city government can work to improve the quality of life for residents, and I hope you'll come out when we visit your ward. To find out when, please contact your alderperson. And as just a personal note, I just found it overwhelming how much the community appreciated seeing us and the chief out in the community on a Saturday morning. And we got to meet some kids and their parents and guardians who were just thrilled that we were out there, and meant it that we were going to show up, frankly, after Election Day and not just before, into the community. So I look forward to joining all of you in your wards, and there's a lot of flexibility on how we can make this work best for your wards. Maryland Day is this Wednesday, March 25th. On that day in 1634, 2 ships arrived in what is now St. Mary's County, kicking off nearly 400 years of Maryland history. Commemorative events began last Thursday and continue through this Wednesday, when the city offices will be closed in observance. Thursday, opening night for the Annapolis Film Festival, named one of the top 25 coolest festivals in the world by Movie Maker magazine. This 4-day event brings film screenings and panels to our hometown. Whether you're a film buff or casual moviegoer, there's something for everyone. Tickets are available at AnnapolisFilmFestival.com. I want to thank Alderman Smith Brown, who welcomed us in Ward 3 for our March 10th Town Hall. We were joined by every city director to hear from residents who asked great questions and helped us get a better understanding of what we're getting right and where we have room to improve. If you can't get to a town hall but are curious what they're all about, we've recorded and posted each of the past 5 that we've done, with 3 more to go. It's on the city's YouTube channel. Check it out. Next up, we'll be in Ward 1 with Alderman Huntley on Tuesday, April 7th, then in Ward 6 with Alderwoman Conti on Tuesday, April 23rd, and in Ward 4 with Alderwoman Alsop Johnson on Tuesday, May 14th. As a reminder, we plan to hold 2 town halls in each ward twice this year, so 2 in each ward. Our second round begins in July. To see a list of scheduled town halls, visit annapolis.gov and use the keywords engagement opportunities. The 2026 Martin Luther King Jr. Parade and African Diaspora Festival is coming up. Join us on Saturday, April 11th from noon to 8 p.m. to honor the life and legacy of Dr. King. This parade will start off at Amos Garrett Boulevard at West Street at noon and continue toward downtown, ending at Calvert Street. There'll be rolling road closures. But don't leave at the end of the parade, because there'll be music, fun, food, arts, and vendors celebrating the African diaspora in People's Park immediately following the parade. These events are free and open to the public, but the delicious food will cost you. There are still spaces available for the parade. Please visit special events on the city website to learn more about how you can join us in honoring the life of Dr. King and celebrating African heritage at the Diaspora Festival. She isn't here tonight, but there is a new face in the mayor's office, Ombudsman Tiana Parker. She was in the crowd at the last meeting, recognized, but now she's officially a city employee. She's been here a little over a week and is off to a great start in helping our residents, businesses, and visitors navigate city government. I know I've already sent at least a half dozen parking-related inquiries her way. Born and raised in Annapolis, Ms. Parker previously served as a community engagement officer in the Anne Arundel County Executive's Office. In that role, she helped resolve constituent matters and led large-scale events and programs. Welcome, Ombudsman Parker. Today marks our 112th day on the City Council, my 112th day as mayor of Annapolis. Now that we're officially in triple digits, I am looking back at our 100-day plan and sharing progress we've made. First, I promised to build a strong, accountable leadership team, and I'm proud of the team we're building. Right now, we're reviewing applications for city manager and city attorney, and we're accepting applications for finance director and human resources director. And soon we'll announce our selection committee for police chief. I promised to listen to city staff. With assistance from Due East Partners, we held 19 roundtable conversations with city employees across all departments. Over the next 7 days, we're holding 2 staff town halls to share the results with city staff. Over the next few months, we'll begin implementing recommendations. The city's acting HR director is working to reinforce our commitment to fair and equitable practices and taking the necessary steps to strengthen employee understanding of how to recognize and address allegations of discrimination. I promised regular communication and transparency with residents. In addition to the town halls and ward walks, we're holding office hours to give city residents 10-minute, one-on-one conversations with their mayor. We're also emailing regular newsletters that explain legislation coming before the city council. I promise to act quickly on major high-impact challenges, such as City Dock. As we've shared, FEMA has officially signed off on our $35.5 million hazard mitigation grant. This money will help us get this much-needed flood protection project across the finish line. Regarding permits, since January 1st, the city has reduced the average time for a permit from 15 working days to 5.6 working days. It remains a priority, and we will continue working on that progress. As for parking, we introduced the Golden Pass Senior Program to make downtown more accessible for older residents of the city or even outside the city. We're also working towards making the Mills Hillman Garage work on a post-paid system like the other city garages so that drivers pay fewer penalties. On the issue of public safety, I've been holding bi-weekly meetings with the acting police chief and deputy to stay updated on the department and ensure a unified strategy to ensure our residents feel safe and heard. I've also begun tackling the shortage of affordable housing by co-sponsoring legislation with Alderwoman O'Neill for a 12-month moratorium on new short-term rental licenses while we work to improve enforcement and address concerns. This legislation passed the City Council at our last council meeting. I'm incredibly proud of the progress we've made on the issues laid out in my 100-day plan, and I want to thank the incredible public servants working for the city. Without them, these accomplishments would absolutely not have been possible. At our next City Council meeting, we get a 3-week break, if you guys haven't noticed. We've been meeting a lot lately. I'll be delivering my first State of the City address as mayor, giving a comprehensive update on the current state of Annapolis and what the city government is working on. The next council meeting will also mark the official beginning of our FY 2027 budget process. The Finance Committee, Carrie can't wait, will hold almost daily hearings as we iron out our operating and capital improvement budgets ahead of the June 1st council meeting, when we'll ask for a vote on the final budget package as amended. As my administration prepares our budget, we're working on identifying top priorities of city directors, alderpersons, residents. Our goal is to focus on the most pressing needs while being deliberate with taxpayer money. We must remain accountable to you, the residents of Annapolis. And on that note, let's get this meeting started. Ms. City Attorney, will you please call the next item on the agenda?
Next item on the agenda is reports by committees.
Thank you. Any council members wish to provide a report of their committee? Alderman Savage.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So at the last Environmental Matters Committee meeting, we postponed action on O226, mooring ball legislation, because we're awaiting additional information from staff, and I believe some of our colleagues will be working on some amendments to that. We did not take action on R126, the performance standards, but we are going to be working with the city manager, I think early fall, to speak about some of the environmental standards, performance standards for the next fiscal year. We received an update from Public Works on City Dock flood barrier technology. This was, I think, very helpful. Basically, we learned why we had to move from the self-deploying technology, which is basically because of some settlement consolidation of material as well as cost, and why we had to move to a manually installed wall. This is going to take some additional time to install the wall, but we don't expect to have to utilize it too frequently. We also received a stormwater presentation from Public Works. It was a great presentation, very detailed. This focused on talking about the proposed change to the non-residential fee structure for the stormwater fee. And so this would be moving from a tiered structure to what we call an equivalent residential unit. But in a nutshell, it allows for more accurate and equitable fee structure where properties with large amounts of impervious surface are appropriately paying more than those who have less impervious surface. I mean, it's always been the case, but this really makes it even more equitable. So the new rate structure will bring in more fee revenue, which will hopefully be used to reduce any kind of need for fee increase as we move forward. It also provides more incentive for these large property owners to utilize the revamped fee reduction in that, because some of the large properties will have a significant increase. But again, that just gives us more ability to actually get them to utilize this reduction program that Public Works is hard at work on, where they can get credits based on stormwater improvements that they make on their properties. If they remove impervious surface or put in stormwater management or plant some trees. So that concludes the update from McKinney. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions for Alderman Savage? Okay. Alderwoman O'Neill.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. The Public Safety Committee met last Wednesday, the 18th, and we had a presentation from Chief O'Malley from the Fire Department. We've used the last two public safety meetings, and we'll use the next one in April for police. But we've used them to have the departments give presentations on what they do, some of the outlying things that people don't necessarily know, the tasks that they perform. They gave us a lot of data on how many calls were received and that they responded to, as well as an update on their new vehicles, the fireboat coming. So it's been really informative. If anybody's interested in learning more about both OEM, which presented in February, and then the fire department, which presented last week, they can go online to watch the video from those meetings. But I think we found them pretty informative, and a lot of questions were asked and answered by the chief. So thank you very much. Next month we have Acting Chief Miguez coming, and we're really excited about hearing all the things that the police department's doing.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Any questions for Alderwoman O'Neill? Seeing none. Any other committee reports? Yes, Alderman Huntley.
Very briefly, I just want to note that the Finance Committee is working on our hearing schedule for the budget hearings, like you mentioned, and I think at our next meeting on April 1st, we'll be voting on that, but we hope to actually have it finalized any day now.
Okay. Any questions for Alderman Huntley? Any other committee reports? Okay. Mixed City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
Next item on the agenda is comments by the general public.
Thank you. There's no one signed up to speak today, but if anyone would like to speak on any general matter, now is your time. Going once, going twice? Okay. Seeing no motion in chambers, I declare comments by the general public closed. Ms. City Attorney, would you please present the next item on the agenda?
The next item on the agenda is ID 6326, a discussion by Public Works Director Burr Vogel on the changes to the capital improvement projects this year.
Thank you. Director Vogel, please make yourself comfortable, introduce yourself, and then you can begin whenever you're ready.
Good evening, I'm Burr Vogel, Public Works Director. Tonight's presentation is interactive. I hope all of you, or many of you, already have looked at the FY26 approved capital budget. If you have not, I would recommend that you download it now. But I can walk you through that as well once I get my computer plugged in. That's going to be the first thing I do.
While you're doing that, I'll point out that anyone watching can load up this. Is this presentation loaded on the city website as well? Cynthia? No. What's that? Okay. Hopefully you can load it up as fast as possible so we can.
To get to the capital budget.
Oh, you're on the website. Great.
Right, we're going to start there, just to make sure that everybody has that. There are a couple of things I'm going to walk you through. This is really kind of an orientation for new council members. If you've been on the Finance Committee especially, but on council for a while, all of this is going to sound very familiar. But for the new members, I hope it's helpful. You click on budgets. Over here on the right side, you have the current adopted capital budget, and previous approved ones are down here in the archives section. So you just click on that, that'll open up or download a PDF. So with that, I will start the actual slides.
Okay.
Hopefully this works. Fantastic. All right, we'll just be going over different types of capital projects, the major sources of funding that we use, and some of the key projects from the FY 2026 budget, many of which will, I think all of which are carrying over. None of those major projects are wrapping up. So projects, you can kind of think of them in two main buckets. They're things just fixing what we already have. You can think of repairing a parking garage, a street, sidewalk, playgrounds, and what else? Waterfront, we have a lot of waterfront infrastructure, so we do that as well. If you click over on the link that's in the presentation, it's going to take you to something new that we have just uploaded in the last couple of weeks and made live. And this is a story map. Switch back over to that. Hopefully it's right here. Yep, this is from the Public Works webpage. You can get to this link, and it'll have a little GIS engine over here with all of our projects with a little icon. And if you click on mobility and traffic safety, it'll just highlight those. This would be things like sidewalks, new bike trails, and all of the major traffic safety improvement projects. I will note that in some of the other areas, it's not a complete list of not all of the projects are on this map yet. Most of the mobility and traffic safety projects are. And you can click on a particular one. It'll give you a short little description. So this is available for council. This is kind of maybe the easiest reference for you all to see a quick status update on any of the projects, particularly things that we think would be of public interest. So I wanted to point out that resource. And
Can you click on that to show us where it takes you?
sure, let's see. Click on what, Mr. Mayor?
The CIP story map link?
The link there?
Yeah.
Sure. Oh, so you're not seeing what I'm displaying. This is one of the funny little glitches. So this whole thing has not been working. Try again. Click here. What's probably going to happen is you'll see nothing up there. Right. It stays in PowerPoint, so I know how to do this. I have to fix this. Escape. There, leave the brief. There. Okay, this is where the link takes you,
Thank you.
to this page.
And is that available to anybody or
This
just
is
council?
available to the public.
Okay.
If you go to the Public Works website, there's a link on the left side that says capital projects.
Thank you.
And that will take you, everything I've just been explaining is over here, icons for different project types. If you'll click on mobility and traffic safety, you can see the various projects for sidewalks and other traffic safety projects with a status, okay? So go back to the presentation now. There. All right. So this is going to be funny. I'll have to stop the presentation again to go back to the capital budget. But main types of funding we have, of course, grants, but using city funding, we've got bonds, capital reserve, and PAYGO. There's a very kind of small distinction between capital reserve, but my understanding of capital reserve is when we don't use all of our budget in a given year, it gets distributed into a few different other accounts one of those being capital reserve. And that's money we can use on capital projects that has a couple of benefits over bonds. One being we don't have to pay interest on it, and two, it's flexible. So if there's a project that needs a little bit of extra money during the year, we don't have to amend a bond ordinance and go through some fairly challenging steps there. So it's great to have some capital reserve available, gives us flexibility during the year. I do want to point or go back to the PDF, which is over here. And if you look at page 10, this gives a rundown of all of the different funding that funds the various projects for the year. So this is a very helpful table. You can see particularly what is in the current budget for bonds and capital reserve, a little bit further down, I think. Capital reserve down here, and that shows you that in the 2026 budget, the City Council appropriated about $24 million worth of direct city funding into the capital program. Historically, that's a little high, and I've got those numbers in one of my other slides. So, and it gives you a projection also here into future years based off of the projects. So you'll see that number bounce around a little bit.
Director Vogel, before you move on,
Yes.
before you move on from this page, I don't want to stop you, but I want to stop you before you move on from this page. So once you're done describing this.
I'm done on this one. I was going to go to another table.
Okay. So especially for new council members, but a refresher for returning council members, this is a really important information, that top line. And
I'm trying to get there. Yep. I was
Yeah.
just zooming in.
so what this is saying, again, bonds repaid by the general fund. This means most of our capital projects are coming from that, are going to be on that line, recognized. So that's a big summary. So prior approved, the 71 is a bit, I think Vicky's term was squishy, because it includes some projects that were previously money borrowed for projects that never end. So think sidewalks, think streets. You borrowed money, you did some streets, you did some sidewalks, you borrowed more money, you do more, that kind of never ends. So that 71 is a bit misleading because it has a lot of that, and there, we talked about, and I refer to her as Vicky, obviously I mean City Manager Buckland, cleaning that up a little bit so that it's still just current bonds going for current projects. So big caveat with that 71 million. That 20 million is a real number. That's essentially what the last budget was allocating with the projects that were approved, what they allocated and expected to spend in the current fiscal year that we're in. Doesn't mean that it was actually spent. It's a snapshot in time when that budget was prepared and then approved of those expectations. And then can I see the out years, please? So based on those existing projects for those out years, so 2027 we're about to begin, then 28, 29, and so you'll see it declining. It doesn't mean that when we get to those years, those numbers will actually be that low. That's just based on the projects that have already been approved. Those numbers will fall into prior approved once we get to those years. Those numbers will change every year. So again, it's a snapshot in time based on a lot of estimates of those projects. So I just want to highlight that because you see, if the average is already 20 million, and based on last year, 2 years from now, 2028, they're already at that 20 million, means that there's very little borrowing capacity to go if there aren't changes to be made. And I'm certainly looking to you two gentlemen to correct anything I'm saying that needs to be corrected or expounded on. Just important information. So just want to make sure you all got it, because we'll come back to this when we get to the next budget. Alderman Huntley?
Could you scroll just a smidge to the left? Yeah, thank you. What I was unclear on is why there's none for the sewer fund, no bonds for the sewer fund, when I know we were doing sewer projects that were paid for with bonds. Are those paid for out of the general fund bonds, or we're just not showing sewer fund up here for some reason?
I think if we go down, we're going to see sewer projects being funded from other sources, transportation sewer fund. Sewer fund bonds. We were in the general fund section.
Gotcha. Thank you.
So each of the enterprises has their own breakout here.
Okay. Any other questions on this page? again, new council members or any returning? Alderman Schneidermeyer?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is just kind of piggyback off what you described as the squishy maintenance funds. If any of my colleagues want to learn a little bit more about squishy maintenance funds and how infrastructure is funded, I encourage you to check out our land value and infrastructure study. We went over it again at the...
Sorry, it's starting to lose you. Check out what?
Our land value and infrastructure study. It is on the city website, and we went over the presentation again at the Rules and City Government meeting in February.
Okay, thank you.
But when really, there's just maybe a quirk of the way projects are budgeted and the way we carry things forward. I'll jump down to one here. And FG. Almost there. General roadways. Here we go. So this is a project that has recurring funding of about $3 or $4 million, or $3.5 million a year, and you can see this prior approved appropriation. What you don't know here is what was the starting date for that, right? On some projects, maybe it's 2008, other projects 2013. So this is kind of a meaningless number because you don't really know since when. When you look at one of these projects, what's interesting is how much is unencumbered. And so that's one of the things we make sure to keep track of. In any given year, it fluctuates a little bit, but of the general roadways, there might be $2 or $3 million carryover from one year to the next. Did want to point out above that sort of roll-up that we were looking at is a full list of each one of the projects. It's one of the, if you're kind of looking at an overview or trying to learn more about the capital budget, I would start here. This is a great place. You just see a full list of all of the projects and kind of their general cost. Now, one of the things that's a little, it's hidden here is of these projects, the amounts, what is city funded versus externally funded. So you don't see here bonds versus other sources. You do have to go to those individual project pages to understand the full funding picture. But you can see anything that's recurring, it really jumps right out at you here. You see the same, kind of the same number all the way across the 5 fiscal years of the budget. And with that, I'll go back to the slides.
Before you move on to this page, I also want to say something, but if you're not done with this slide, I'll wait till you're done.
I'll pause.
Okay. So I want, again, especially for new council members, but refresher for returning council members, this is really important information. It's an important slide. So that first way of paying for capital projects, bonds, that means we're going to the investment world and borrowing money. Interest rates vary. We're relatively safe bonds. We don't generally have problems selling bonds, but that's how most projects get funded, is those bonds. But it's not the only source, and those other two sources are very important if you want to fund something with keeping costs down. So if you're funding something with either capital reserves, essentially means that cash that was not spent in previous years you have rolling over, or pay-go money, it's short for pay as you go. That's for recurring expenses like a sidewalk. If you spend $1 million on sidewalks each year, if you're using pay-go money or capital reserves, that means you're actually spending $1 million a year for $1 million of sidewalks. If you're borrowing $1 million a year for $1 million of sidewalks, you're actually paying interest every single year for that same expense. I'm not saying it's improper because it is a utility. Generally, capital projects are things that are going to last a long time. And so it's appropriate to spread out the costs to future residents who will be living here for the length of the bonds, the length of the project. But it doesn't have to be that way, is my point. And so just want to make sure, again, I think that's really just important information that you understand those three types of paying for capital projects. Alderman, sorry.
Yes, so going back to, thank you, Burr, Director Vogel, for everything. Going back to the listing of all of the budget priorities for the capital budget, is there a way, and this is something that I talked about to my constituents at the time, those who I was looking to represent, is there a way for us on the budget, and maybe this is for you too, Mayor, to list specifically for each project which ward that project is in, and on maybe the cover page or in the beginning, showing a pie chart of some sorts of how much or where each project is for each ward?
I think that's something we can talk about with finance, maybe getting late in the game to do that for this year, but it's possible. We have a few months before that published PDF document goes out for the FY27 budget. But absolutely a great suggestion for something we could maybe put on the website. If it doesn't go into the official budget document, that's information we could put on our website somewhere, I would think.
Okay.
I would, in the discussion of how to do that, especially because if it's not going to be in legislation, it would be something for the web. Sure. I would just want to highlight the difference between where a project is located and who it's for. I think what you just said is who it's for. It's very different than where it's located. City Dock, for instance, if you saw there was 71 million in prior appropriations plus the current year plus future years, total of $87 million project. It's located in Ward 1, but it's for the entire city.
Yeah, and I think that's, if I may respond, it's definitely interpretation, however, whatever people feel about that amount. But I think still knowing the amount in each ward, even on there, on the corner, it could literally just say the ward that the project is in. If people feel a certain way that, oh, why is a certain ward getting all these projects, that's up for them to determine. But the matter of the fact is just the information and also the description of the amounts of money per ward.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Huntley.
I just felt the need to tack on to what you said because I saw a great example that's from Alderman Schneidermeyer the other day. I felt the need to tack on to what you were saying where there was a stormwater project occurring in, I think it was Ward 6, that was actually preventing flooding in Ward 5. And so it just struck me as a perfect example of what you're talking about, where it's occurring is not necessarily where it's benefiting.
Great. All right.
And my last comment here, just a little bit of my view of the world is if you spend all the way up to your bond capacity, your debt service capacity every single year, you'll never have the money to do the really large kind of once a decade, once a generation projects. Like a city dock, like a Pig Moyer Recreation Center. So it's always, I think, a good practice to kind of not fully spend your debt capacity. You might be able to issue $15 million in bonds every year, probably a good idea to undershoot that so that when you need to do something really big, I think that's kind of one of the main purposes of municipal bonds.
Great. I think we're done with this slide. You could
Yep,
resume
I am.
your presentation.
And really the last is just a couple of projects I won't really go into in much detail. You can check these out, but it shows what the major projects are. Again, some really big numbers on here, but the vast majority of these funds, if I were to just speculate, probably 70% of that is being supported by grants, not taxpayer funds.
Before we move on, I just want to again highlight these are 26 numbers. So this was a snapshot in time roughly a year ago when these estimates were made about the cost of these projects. Every year, like the budget you're going to get is going to be another snapshot in time. The information becomes stale very quickly as they get new information, new designs. Stanton Center, I'll call out as an example, up there for $4.9 million. The latest estimate we got from Director Johnson was $14.9 million for that project.
And I think that will be broken into phases. That'll be tackled in a couple of different pieces, I understand. Same thing with Cars Beach, right? Cars Beach is going, you can really think about it in three major pieces. There's the land acquisition, that's already happened, that money's spent. There's a shoreline restoration that's going to happen hopefully within the next 12 months. And then there's a park master plan in development that will be ready to go once we are able to pull together all the funding to do that project. Then the stuff that's maybe not so exciting, but this is the world that gets me very excited, making sure that our roads and sidewalks are in good shape. So these are some of our top maintenance projects, and we spend or we allocate about $6 million a year for these types of activities. So kind of think of that somewhere maybe a half to a third of our budget goes into things that are pretty much fixed year in, year out. And then we have, maybe up to $10 million a year or so to spend on other things. And then another flavor of maintenance projects is sometimes a maintenance project is just a kind of a one-off thing, and we don't use those recurring funds to do stuff. And these are some major projects that would fall into that category. And then, not everything is completely clean, like the Newman Street Playground. Yes, that playground is at the end of its life, but the thing that replaces it is going to be much nicer than what we have there. And that would be the same for, I would say, many of our waterway improvement projects, where we may have a pier that's falling apart, a bulkhead that's falling apart, but when we repair it, we might get a floating dock instead of what was there before. And that is all of my slides. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Director Vogel. What questions do you have, Council? Alderman Savage?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Director Vogel. So 2 questions. I guess, first of all, how do you go about determining staffing or consultant needs as we develop and add projects to the CIP list, to the budget?
I'll start with just internal staff. We could see that we did not have enough staff to get the work done. And so the engineering staff was stretched way too thin. Projects would sit for 2 years before we could even, they'd be appropriated in 2024, and it wouldn't be until we're here in calendar year 2026, and we're just now getting around to drafting up an RFP to have a designer give us a proposal. So that's kind of the situation we were in, say, 2 years ago. And one of the first things I tackled as a director was like, hey, we've got to get out of this. Got to make sure I get enough people to do the work that the council and the public expects from us. So we've added some help, with everybody's support. A traffic engineer. We got a grants position. Take that grant administration paperwork off of engineers and project managers. Let them do engineering work. So we're getting pretty close to what I think is right sized for the workload that we have now. We've got one more general projects position to fill, and I think we'll be in good shape once we get that last position on board. So that's kind of the internal staffing. There was no algorithm, but you could just see. And Allison DiMatteo, she's got 12 projects she's working on. Like that's too much, and clearly, between the capital projects and then just the recurring sidewalk and roadway work, you can't ask Allison to shoulder all of that.
So when we see the timeline change in CIP, as far as different phases of the project, that's one of the staffing.
In the past, a lot of those shifts have been staffing driven. And I'll use an example from your ward, the Edgewood Road or Benby Beach Road, sidewalks along the Moyer Park. That's something is that we have nobody to assign to this project. So let me see if I can partner with the Annapolis Maritime Museum. They've got an interest in that, and we'll pay them essentially to hire a designer, do the design work, the permitting, contracting, and we'll reimburse. That didn't necessarily go as planned, but that's kind of why I had to make that decision, because I've got nobody else to work on some things like that.
Yeah, that's one of the things I was getting at, is like so you do consider at times bringing on consultants to help with getting permitting, because that can be rather burdensome. Sure,
right. A lot of the work, the engineering work and the permitting work is done by designers, but you have to have the in-house staff to manage even consultants. Yeah.
Alderman Huntley?
I think Alderman Schoenemeyer actually had his hand up before me.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is more of a quick comment or partial comment, partial question. Obviously, we are very excited about all these projects, and if there is any code changes that need to happen to speed anything up in the process regarding the study phase or the design phase, etc., please do not hesitate to let us know, because sometimes that can delay things for longer than we like to see, and anything that we can control at the city level, we want to streamline as much as possible. So
I won't hesitate to ask.
thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Huntley?
I was just going to ask the director to talk a little bit more about that. I'm forgetting off the top of my head what we call it. Do we call it overhead? Yeah, city overhead, that portion of CIP projects, and how we calculate that, and for everybody's benefit, how that getting paid for is different than how we pay for other projects, other parts of the project, I should say.
Okay, this is a great question. Let's go to Robert Eads Park. So the basics of the city overhead are that, and it kind of makes sense in principle the way it's been structured. I'll be straightforward. I have some deep disagreements in the way it's been implemented. The philosophy good, the idea good, the implementation I think is deeply flawed. And so the idea is, well, city staff need to work on these projects. So if council wants to, keep adding projects and adding projects, this is a way to make sure that the operating budget reflects the workload that's associated with all of that capital project effort. So in theory, it sounds great. In practice, this project illustrates the flaw. The flaw is Robert Eads at one point in time was envisioned as this really large project. It's just a flat 5%. So it was envisioned as this really large project. We would buy some property on the other side of the street and do a bunch of stuff over there, and we would wave a magic wand and a bunch of grants would appear, and you'd have this $3 million project or something, looks like it was at one point in time a $2 million project. So they allocated, a long time ago, maybe 2, 3, 4 years ago, $100,000 for Robert Eads Park. Same things happened to City Dock with like a much bigger number. Well, now the project's being worked on, but that money went into the general budget years ago. And oh, by the way, it didn't end up being $2 million once you stripped out all of the wishful thinking about grants that are never going to happen. You really end up with a $400,000 project. So I just think there's some work that needs to be done on this. And one of the things, because what you'll see is big spikes. If you use City Dock as an example, let's say in 2024, City Dock is a $70 million project and $3.5 million goes into city overhead back then. So the city's general budget is flushed with cash from this capital project, but is funded with grants that may or may not ever happen. What if the FEMA grant had never happened? Well, that's $30 million. What's 5% of $30 million? That's $1.5 million. It was $1.5 million that was put into the city's budget 3 years ago when we applied for the FEMA grant, or 4 years ago. And just now, we are now using a lot of city effort, right? Now, obviously, we have Matt Kelly, a project manager. So there's more work to be done here, but it would lend itself to something that's a little more stable, where you would average out and you would make sure that projects contribute, but it wouldn't, if anything that fluctuates wildly, for the purposes of funding city staff, when the city staff don't fluctuate widely, clearly there's a flaw there. That's all out. I'm not here to offer solutions. I'm not the finance director. I'm just pointing out that this makes no sense. Sorry, I mean.
Alderman Thorpe.
So to give you the opportunity to drill down a little bit farther, what I think I hear you saying is, City Council, work with me as we stabilize these projects so that the projects that we pass are executable.
I think so.
Yeah,
But,
so
but in the details, it may be, rather than tying it to the overall project amount, maybe tie it to the bond funding.
Got it.
Maybe it would have to be 10% to be something that makes sense. But certainly associating it with grants at the time that maybe the grant is applied for, or perhaps stretching the city overhead amount across a few years in order to smooth things out. In a couple of different ways, I think it could be made more rational.
So I think that sounds like good guidance as we get into the budget discussions, that we are deliberate in our actions and we're looking for a head nod from you. I can execute it the way you're saying it.
I can execute it as the Public Works Director, and the other departments that have public works, that have capital projects. We're okay because we have the staffing funded, right? We're in the operational budget. What the weirdness comes in here is that sometimes the capital budget will infuse a large amount of money into the operating budget, which should more or less be steady state across the years. You don't want to have big, like 1 year we're really flush with cash and we don't know what to do with it, so we give it away, I'll just say. And then a couple of years later, all of those staffs are still here, but now the general fund operating budget is now really tight because I'm not getting this infusion of capital project overhead into it. That's coming from money we're borrowing, right? So it's a little bit funny. I wouldn't advise you all to tackle this necessarily in FY27. We'll just get through, but be thinking about, with the new finance director and the new finance team, thinking about a little bit of a more rational way of handling that overhead. In the world I come from, we service the Navy, the Marine Corps, the Air Force, all that stuff. We collected 6% if you weren't Navy, and 4% if you were the Navy, something like that. But it all went into one big pot and paid for the 15,000 people we had working on projects around the world, or so, right? But it was smooth, and you didn't get to get the money into your bank account as the Naval Facilities Engineering Command until you actually did the work. It was based on work in place, and then you got to collect your money at that point in time. And then you got to spend it on people, which made sense. It ties the funding to when you need it, and you can surge, of course. You can bring in consultants when you need to bring in a big team of consultants if you're doing a large number of projects at a given location. Made a lot more sense. Of course, much bigger numbers. Certainly.
Thank you.
Okay. Did I see any other questions? All right. Thank you, Director Vogel. Appreciate this as a baseline of beginning the next round of budget talks. Just wanted you all to still have this information. Again, those numbers are all going to change, so just be prepared for that. This is just setting baseline. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Ms. City Attorney, please call the next item on the agenda.
Next item on the agenda is the consent calendar. Items on the consent calendar include the supplemental appropriations under $50,000, beginning with SA 1426, which is reallocating the Art and Public Places fund balance to planning and zoning in the amount of $13,602. Next is SA 1626, which is a grant from the Anne Arundel County Department of Health to the Annapolis Police Department in the amount of $500. And SA 1826, which is a grant from the Maryland Department of Transportation to our Transportation Department in the amount of $22,320. Next is the appointments, beginning with AP 1626, which is the appointment of David W. Bugelmans to the Recreation Advisory Board. I am so sorry if I mispronounced your last name. And AP 1726, which is the appointment of Miss Teresa Ellienberg to the Human Relations Commission. That's the end of the consent calendar.
Okay. Are there any objections to any of the matters on the consent calendar? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar.
So moved.
Thank you, Alderman Schandelmeyer. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. And Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes, sir. Mayor Buckley?
Excuse me?
Yes, take your time.
112 days. I'm sorry, Mayor. Mayor Littman. Sorry.
Yes.
Jesus. Okay. Alderman Schandelmeyer.
Aye.
Alderman Conti.
Aye.
Alderman Savage.
Aye.
Alderman Thorpe.
Aye.
Alderman Huntley.
Aye.
Alderwoman O'Neill.
Aye.
Alderman Smith Brown.
Abstain?
Okay. Alderwoman Alsop Johnson.
Aye.
And I apologize.
Good day. Ms. City Attorney, please call the next item on the agenda.
Next item on the agenda is business and miscellaneous, the supplemental appropriations of $50,000 and above, beginning with SA 1726, which is a grant from the Maryland Department of Transportation in the amount of $90,000.
Thank you. I'd entertain a motion to accept SA 1726.
So moved.
Thank you, Alderman Huntley. Thank you, Alderman, for the second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion carries. Ms. City Attorney, please call the next item on the agenda.
Next item on the agenda is SA 1926, which is a grant from the Maryland Department of Transportation to our Transportation Department in the amount of $76,500.
Thank you. I'd entertain a motion to accept SA 1926.
So moved.
So moved.
Thank you, Alderman O'Neill. Is there a second?
Second.
Alderman,
All those in favor say aye.
may I ask a
I'm
question?
sorry, my bad.
Yeah.
Is there a discussion?
Yes.
Alderman
So in
Smith-Brown.
regards to the grants, do you mind just sharing just the process of how that goes when you say that there's a grant that we are moving forward on? What does that process look like?
Sure. So if you pull it up in either Granicus or online, let me pull this back up. So this is 1926. If you click on the detail, you'll see this is a state grant revenue for that amount, 76.5. The expense is the same amount. And so you'll see in the explanation, this is a supplemental allocation appropriating that amount of money from the Maryland Department of Transportation for the mobile lift columns for maintenance. Total cost is $85,000. The local share, $8,500, will be funded out of the Department of Transportation preventive maintenance budget. And then it gets approved by the individual department. In this case, Director Moore gets approved by the city manager. In this case, Vicki Buckland, the finance director, and the mayor. Okay. All right, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those against? Motion carries. Ms. City Attorney, please call the next item on the agenda.
Next item on the agenda is legislative actions on first reader, beginning with ordinance 626, oversight of the city's firing range.
Okay. Is there a motion to adopt 0626 on first reader?
So moved.
Thank you, Alderman Schandelmeyer. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I refer 0626 to the Rules and City Government Committee. Yes, Alderman Savage?
Just wanted to ask, Chair Fine, if this is going to go to public safety?
No, this goes to Rules and City Government.
That's fine.
Ms. City Attorney, please call the next item on the agenda.
Next item on the agenda is Resolution 726, support for Maryland General Assembly House Bill 1142, establishing a task force to modernize county and municipal revenue sources.
Is there a motion to adopt R726 on first reader?
So moved.
Thank you, Alderman Schandelmeyer. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Is there a motion to suspend the rules to allow passage of this resolution at this meeting on its introduction?
Motion to suspend the rules.
Thank you, Alderman Schandelmeyer. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion?
You may add me as a co-sponsor to this.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor say, oh, sorry, Alderwoman O'Neill? Sorry.
Yes. Can I just say that the House did pass it today? I think we all received message that the House, so it's now gone to the Maryland Senate. So, but they did encourage if we can continue
Yes.
sending support. So that was really exciting.
Yes. My understanding is that this still goes to the Senate. It'll go to the House, and then the House can share that with the Senate. And MML is kind of keeping tabs, so like they just get to add to the number of municipalities that are supporting it. Alderman Thorpe?
Mr. Mayor, could I ask you to give a brief summary to the public as to why we're suspending the rules?
Sure, thank you. So this resolution is an expression of support. So it's not anything further than that. It's expressing our support for a state House bill that is currently, well, as Alderwoman O'Neill just said, just passed the House. And if this ultimately becomes law, the state would create a task force to study municipal revenue. Currently, Maryland is one of only a handful, I'm forgetting off the top of my head, I think it's one of 4 states in the entire country where the state does not share sales tax with local municipalities. That's one example of municipal revenue aside from property taxes. So because the House is wrapping up their session and they will be done by the time we meet again, we're suspending the rules tonight so we can finish the work of expressing our unanimous support to the state House and Senate to pass this resolution into law.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I thought it was valuable the public hear that. Thank you.
Yeah, agreed. Likewise. Good habit to to explain when we're suspending the rules. Okay.
Mayor,
Yes.
have a question as well.
Alderman Smith-Brown.
Yes. So are we going to make clear in our messaging that we will also support the Senate bill once that is?
So my understanding, and actually I just happened to run into a state senator today, I don't think there is a cross-file bill, so the Senate is getting the House bill and will be voting on the House bill now that it's crossed over, as opposed to a separate Senate bill that would have been reconciled if they both matched. Okay? No one's looking to correct me, so I think I got it right. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. And that was just to suspend the rules, right? Okay. Is there a motion to adopt R726 on second reading? Thank you, Alderman Schandelmeyer. Is there a second?
Second.
Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Mayor Littman.
Yes.
Alderman Schandelmeyer.
Aye.
Alderwoman Conti.
Aye.
Alderman Savage.
Aye.
Alderman Thorpe.
Aye.
Alderman Huntley.
Aye.
Alderwoman O'Neill.
Aye.
Alderman Smith-Brown.
Aye.
And Alderwoman Alsop Johnson.
Aye.
I should have said I've been called worse.
May I ask a question, Mayor?
Yeah, Alderman Smith-Brown?
Yes, so it's only going to be sent to our representatives. Is it also going to be dispersed outside of that at all, or?
So I believe it's only sent to our representatives, but MML is really carrying the water on this. We're sharing a copy with MML, and they're advocating on behalf of all municipalities. So I think they're going to do that heavy work.
Well, we appreciate them for that. Just wanted to put it on
Thank you.
record. Mhm.
Okay, I think we're done with R726. Ms. City Attorney, please call the next item on the agenda.
Next item on the agenda is legislative actions on second reader, beginning with Resolution 126, fiscal year 2027, annual statement of performance standards.
Thank you. As a point of order, I think I heard you say earlier that the Environmental Matters Committee did not issue a recommendation on this. Were you deciding not to, and therefore we can proceed, or were you looking for us to postpone this vote?
We just took no action.
Okay.
So basically, we sent it out of committee.
Okay, thank you for the
I'll
clarification.
explain that in a minute.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion to adopt R126 on second reader?
So moved.
Thank you, Alderman Schandelmeyer. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Mayor?
I'm sorry, any discussion? Alderman Savage, sorry.
Thank you. Yeah, just to explain a little bit, we did decide to take no action because again, just focusing on the environmental metrics. So there have been some improvements made, but there are a number of other environmental programs in some of the other departments, including Public Works and Planning and Zoning, that we didn't really take an opinion on, but we wanted to, at some point, work to improve. And so, but we just simply didn't have time. And so we didn't want to hold anything up. So we decided to move forward. Now, personally, I am going to support this tonight because I do think there have been some of the departments, which particularly I know Office of Law as well as City Manager's Office did, and maybe others, but those are the two I'm aware of off the top of my head, have taken steps to improve their performance standards for this fiscal year. And I know we kind of ran out of time with just natural transition to a new administration, but I really would like to see in the future that we beef up and make these true performance metrics and standards that are incorporated into the budget. And I know that's something that Alderman Huntley as well as Thorpe are already quite aware of and planning to do to help the administration with. But as far as environmental matters, that's where I'm coming from. So that's because I do think these are very important at some point to get really incorporated into our budget to guide what we're doing for the next year, and hopefully hear from the departments when they present to the committee. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Alderman Thorpe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To build on that and clarify a little bit, I want to point my finger at you for driving this going forward with the performance metrics. That I'm in the same place that I think everybody is. We've got some improvement to make, but we've got to move them forward so that we can present a budget. You can present a budget to the City Council. I'd like to update you all on conversations with Acting City Manager Buckland, who, when she returns to her full-time job, we are going to start working on the audit committee next month, going through a couple departments every month and reviewing it. Because for members of the city council, it's really important that the staff come forward with recommendations on metrics rather than we tell them what their metrics are. With our form of government and the way it works, and I'm really excited, Ms. Buckland is the right person to be doing this with you driving this effort. And so I would agree with Alderman Savage that we've got some work to do. I think we all agree on that, but let's move them forward and let's get done so you can present a budget.
Alderman Huntley?
Alderman Thorpe and Savage said it about as well as I could, so I'll keep it sweet and short. My goal is that by the time we're sitting around here talking about this next year, that this is the second most important piece of legislation we pass in 2027. I think our budget should be number one, and the metrics that we are choosing to meet that budget should be the second most important thing. So that'll be my goal for next year.
Thank you. Anyone else? I would just, certainly I'm on the same page as all of you. I just will also just to tie in a few other things. I started this meeting talking about the staff roundtables, and then we are sharing with the staff those recommendations. Ideally, a true strategic plan would be building off of that. You heard me mention Dewey's Partners as our facilitator for that. They're going to be in my proposed budget for working with us, with the residents as the next stage. And you heard me talking about town hall meetings. The fall set will be, in my mind, focused on the budget with the citizens. So it won't be the same director rollout. It'll be focused on the budget. We would tie in the staff input, director input, your input, residential input, and come up with this truer strategic plan that is then reflected in performance measures with true metrics that we can evaluate year to year whether we're being successful or not. So that's just how the many thoughts being tied together.
And if I could just repeat a conversation
Alderman
you and I,
Thorpe.
thank
Sorry.
you. Repeat a conversation you and I have had about it's a continuing process, right? And Alderman Huntley and I have spoken about this. It's a circle, and we'll just continue to improve upon them as time goes on.
100%.
Thank you.
Okay. So if I haven't lost my place too badly, is there adopted? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Oh, I'm sorry. Madam City Clerk, please call a roll.
Mayor Lippman.
Yes.
Alderman Shandemeyer.
Aye.
Alderwoman Conti.
Aye.
Alderman Savage.
Aye.
Alderman Thorpe. Alderman Huntley.
Aye.
Alderwoman O'Neill.
Aye.
Alderman Smith Brown.
Aye.
Alderwoman Alsop Johnson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. City Attorney, please call the next item on the agenda.
Next item on the agenda is Resolution 426, extending the public paddlecraft rack pilot project.
Is there a motion to adopt R426 on second reader? So moved. Thank you, Alderman Thorpe. Is there a second?
Second.
Do the best I can. Second. Of course you are, from Ward 5. Any discussion? Alderwoman O'Neill?
I have a really quick question. Thank you much, Mr. Mayor. A constituent reached out concerned that this pilot project could lead to numerous unauthorized paddle racks throughout the city and cluttering up parks and whatnot. And does Deputy Director Giles have any answer to that? Sorry, that was not really a question, but
Yes,
they brought it up.
Yeah, I know where you're going with that. Okay. Jackie Guile, Deputy City Manager for Resilience and Sustainability. Title 15, I don't recall exactly which section, does prohibit unauthorized items, structures, and vessels being left on shore. So an unauthorized paddle rack would fall within that. The harbor master and their team patrol the waters every day, including the shoreline, and that's something they would pick up, and that's something they could enforce against.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
And hopefully that resident is listening.
Good. Any other discussion? Okay. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes, sir. Mayor Lippman.
Aye.
Alderman Shandemeyer.
Aye.
Alderwoman Conti.
Aye.
Alderman Savage.
Aye.
Alderman Thorpe. Alderman Huntley.
Aye.
Alderwoman O'Neill.
Aye.
Alderman Smith Brown.
Aye.
And Alderman Alsop Johnson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. City Attorney, please call the next item on the agenda.
Next item on the agenda is Resolution 626, authorizing itinerant merchant sales within the Annapolis Historic District for approved special events during calendar year 2026.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adopt R626 on second reader? So moved. Alderman Alderman Shandemeyer, excuse me. Close enough. Is there a second?
Second.
Madam City, sorry, any discussion? Okay. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes, sir. Mayor Littman.
Yes.
Alderman Shandemeyer.
Aye.
Alderwoman Conti.
Aye.
Alderman Savage.
Aye.
Alderman Thorpe. Alderman Huntley.
Aye.
Alderwoman O'Neill.
Aye.
Alderman Smith Brown.
Aye.
And Alderwoman Alsop Johnson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. City Attorney, please call the next item on the, I'm sorry, Alderman Savage?
Just a quick kind of point order on that one. So, you know, in the agenda, we often list the printed agenda, like when committees, what action the committees take, if they recommend favorably or recommend not. In this case, though, I think it was just a timing issue, but it raises the other point of like, I don't know if there's a way we can get the committee action listed on Legistar somewhere. So when you click on the legislation, we can see that it went to finance, but to actually find out what they've done, what they did, we would have to click and actually watch the video. So I don't know if there's some way, if we could look into some way we could do that in Legistar, it'd be nice.
We'll take it under advisement. I understand the question. Ms. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
The agenda is completed.
Okay, is there anything else for the good of the order? Alderwoman O'Neill.
Thank you very much. I didn't have one last time, so.
I know, you shocked me. You got to make up for it.
All right. As chair of the Annapolis 250 Commission, I'm excited. We have a new project. The commission actually hired an intern from the University of Maryland, Elizabeth Coleman, and she's been doing an amazing job. And she is working on a project called 250 Voices. And it's a project that we're trying to get residents, locals, to participate in. I have cards. If you go to Annapolis250.net, you can see the link, and residents can submit written form. They can submit video of themselves, and it's to answer the question, what does "in the pursuit of happiness" mean to you? We are trying to get it out, young, old, black, brown, white. If you've been through a America celebration, if you have not, if you are a resident, if you are newly arrived, whatever. So please send out to your constituents. I put some postcards in the back. It's Annapolis250.net. We're working with Annapolis High School. The art teacher has presented to her class, create art based on "In the Pursuit of Happiness." So it's pretty much open to your interpretation. Like I said, written, video. We are going to be, well, tonight we're at a Maryland Day event at the Volunteer Center. On Wednesday, we will be at the Peka House for the Liberty Tree planting. We have a table set up at Juneteenth Festival. I'm working on getting her at the African Diaspora Festival on the 11th. And so if there's other places where you are having people congregate, let us know. But I have other postcards if you would like them. We also have fun stickers, so there's going to be a lot of activity going on for the 4th of July, the 3rd of July, the 3rd and the 4th. And we're getting ready to publish that schedule as well. So
great.
Thankfully, we're working with Mitchell, who's been very free with her time with me and creating a really nice schedule that we can put out. It'll be digital. We're going to put it on the buses starting hopefully in a couple of weeks. There'll be banners downtown in June. So lots of activities going on.
Can I assume then that she has a PDF of this?
Yes.
Okay. And either you or Mitchell, if you could share it with the 9 of us, make sure that we all can include it in our communications
Yes.
with our
I'll do
constituents.
that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else for the good of the order? Yes, Alderman Huntley.
I normally don't avail myself of this opportunity, but I will take it to remind the public that this is Chesapeake Oyster Week, put on by the Oyster Recovery Partnership to celebrate restaurants who recycle oyster shells, which is very important, very cool. Oysters used to be so prolific in the Chesapeake Bay that you could run a boat aground on them, and for a very long time, we were only at 1% of our historic population. We're actually up somewhere between 2 and 3% in the Maryland portion of the Chesapeake Bay now. Big shout out to the folks at DNR, as well as the Oyster Recovery Partnership for doing that, but a big part of it is replanting oysters, for which you need oyster shells, for which you need restaurants to take back their oysters. And so Chesapeake Oyster Week celebrates those restaurants that participate in the Oyster Recovery Partnership's Shell Recycling Partnership Program. And we got a bunch of great ones in Ward 1. We got Federal House, we got McGarvey's, we've got Sea Salt, I believe, Sailor Oyster Bar. There's probably a couple other ones, Harry Brown's. But yeah, go out through the 31st and celebrate some of these restaurants that are serving Chesapeake oysters.
Thank you. Alderman Thorpe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I speak tonight on behalf of the constituents of Ward 8 who have had a pretty tough weekend this weekend trying to deal with the legislation on outdoor dining that is perceived to significantly impact the residents of Eastport and for which they were given no warning. I appreciate the council voting unanimously today to defer it. And I speak tonight on behalf of the constituents to ask that the city council take a pause and look at how we work together to ensure that we positively listen to the residents who are impacted the most, and that we put our best foot forward as we work together, all of us elected in our wards, and work together positively for a common, good, great Annapolis. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? I will use a personal privilege to wish my wife and the First Lady of Annapolis a happy birthday. She will not know I just did that, by the way, because she does not watch. All right, there being no other items on the agenda, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Thank you, Alderman Schandelmeyer. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye. Aye. We are adjourned.